Hello everybody, and welcome to my LeBlanc guide to the mid lane. I'm actually going to do a new format with this one, going to make it a little bit shorter, a little bit sweeter, just straight to the point. Going to give you a skeleton baseline of what you should be doing, just kind of like base runes and just everything you need to do just to step into the game with the champion. A little bit of experience by myself. I have peaked at like D4, like 50 LP or something, so I have a pretty good handle on just kind of like the meta in the mid lane and support lane, those two being my main roles. So let me know what you guys think of my new format. It's a little bit easier to get out videos. I don't have to do like 20 minutes of highlight gameplay, which usually is quite a bit amount of games for each one of the guides. So yeah, so without further ado, let's jump right into the guide. Alright, let's jump right into LeBlanc's kit. First up, Mirror Image, her passive. When LeBlanc drops below 40% health, she becomes invisible for 1 second and creates a mirror image that deals no damage and lasts up to 8 seconds. Mirror Image has a 1-minute cooldown. Mirror Image can be controlled by holding the Alt key and using the right mouse button. This is essentially a get out of jail free card, really effective in getting away from your enemies. Next up, Q. It's called Sigil of Malice. LeBlanc projects a sigil, dealing damage and marking the target for 3.5 seconds, damaging the marked target with an ability to detonate the signal, dealing additional damage. Now, this is just great to to do poke damage as damage with a little bit more damage. Alright, next up, her W, Distortion. LeBlanc dashes to a location, dealing damage to enemies near her destination. For the next 4 seconds, she can activate Distortion again to return LeBlanc to her starting location. This is great for wave clear and going in for her poke rotations. Next up, E, her crowd control, Ethereal Chains. LeBlanc launches a chain that shackles the first enemy hit. If the target remains shackled for 1.5 seconds, LeBlanc roots them and deals an additional damage. This is just the kind of a defensive ability in her kit, really effective. And next up, her ult is essentially you just recast one of her primary abilities again. This works well with getting away with a double W, or doing a lot of damage with a double Q, or getting more crowd control with her double E. And that will wrap up her kit. Alright, and next up for LeBlanc, we are going to dive right into her runes. First up, her primary tree. This is the most meta build you're going to go on her. This is definitely the consensus between all pro players that Electrocute is definitely what you want to take on LeBlanc. And down that row, Sudden Impact is really good because it interacts with your W, and you get that extra bit of magic pen, allowing you to be even a better version of an assassin. Next up in that row, Eyeball Collection, just giving you a little bit more damage, pretty self-explanatory. And then last up, Ravenous Hunter is good for a little bit of sustaining lane. And with the secondary trees, if you are in a easy lane or if you are looking to snowball, Sorcery is definitely the right choice for you. Ultimate Hat is a great pick, allowing you to kind of pump out more of those ultimates, maybe even being the difference between casting 1 or 2 in a team fight. Next up in that, you can also choose Transcendence if you're not going the full 40% CDR straight through items. And then last up, you can choose between the Gathering Storm if you're having really long games, or Scorch if you want a little bit more of that early game power. Next up is if you're wanting to play a safe lane, or if you're a really tough lane that you kind of struggle with and die sometimes, Resolve can be really good with that overpowered combo of Chrysalis and Bone Plating, really doling a lot of those all-in combos that some other champions can provide. And that will wrap up LeBlanc's runes. Alright, let's jump right into LeBlanc's items. First up, the first item you should probably be getting on LeBlanc is Luden's Echo. It gives you everything you want. It gives you CDR, it gives you mana, it gives you a bit more damage. Next up, since she's an assassin, she really enjoys Spell Pen, so Merlinomicon is a very good pickup. Rabadon is a great choice for the third item. And if they're building a lot of magic resist, Voice Staff is a great pickup. If they have a lot of AD and high impact alt, Zonia's can be a very effective item on her as well. And of course, you want to be going down those sorcery boots just to get a little bit more spell pen. And those are her most meta items, in my opinion. Some off meta items that can work on her if you want a little bit more sustain in the laning phase. You can go Gunblade. If you want a little bit more pick potential, GOPs coming a little bit more into prominence. Kind of a bit of off-meta snowball item is the Spellbinders if you're just looking to blow someone up. And also you can be going Lichbane if it can give you a little bit more damage on those combos, kind of synergizing really well with what LeBlanc wants to do in team fights. And that will wrap up LeBlanc's items. Alright, and let's jump into LeBlanc's matchups. First up, some really tough matchups that she struggles with are Aurelion Sol, has great wave clear, has great roam, and has a lot of AoE damage. He can also still damage you while you're in your passive, which is pretty tough. Next up, another tough matchup is kind of a push lane and roam champion, is Twisted Fate. Also, he can see you in your passive if he saves his ult to proc it at that point. He has a pretty safe lane phase if he positions correctly. LeBlanc can look for some all-in kills early, but it is a tough lane. Next up, another lane that's pretty tough for her is Karma. Just again, really good wave clear, a good amount of poke damage, and can shield your combos and heal them out when you're looking to do that as well. And on to her easier matchups. First up is Talia. LeBlanc has a 55% win rate against her, and it's pretty susceptible to the all-in combo. And you can kind of jump around to dodge her pushback. Next up is Azir. You have a 55% win rate against him, and it is mostly because you can really take advantage of his lower damage and viability in the early game, where LeBlanc really does shine with that 55.73% win rate against Azir. And next up we have Victor. Is a pretty easy matchup. He isn't in the best place right now. You're able to jump around to avoid his only CC of his stun. And yeah, he's one of those champions that aren't the strongest in the early game when you are particularly strong, and you can always look for picks on him, as he isn't really that mobile. And that will wrap up the matchups that you should look out for on LeBlanc. Alright, and that will wrap up my quick guide to LeBlanc. Let me know if you guys enjoyed this format. I know it's a little bit different than my longer, in-depth, like 23-25 minute guides. In the future, I am definitely looking to do a deeper look guide into LeBlanc, where it's going to be a bit longer format, get a little bit more of my thoughts about this champion. I'm going to play her definitely a lot more. I know my mechanics are a bit shaky on her at the moment, just kind of getting used to her ranges. So yeah, if you guys enjoyed the content, please remember to like and subscribe, and I'm open to any kind of critique or feedback on my videos. And yeah, let me know in the comments section if you kind of found anything that's peculiar, or maybe an off-meta build that you are having really good success on with LeBlanc. I'd love to talk kind of her builds and her setups. And as always, guys, take it easy.